We are pleased to welcome each of you to the second quarter special meeting for public input. I am very honored tonight to welcome our newest member who's joined us. Mr. Rick Purick is here, and this will be his first meeting, and we're looking forward to his input and contributions as we go forward. And so we welcome you, and we are glad to have your assistance as we take on this meaningful task. Our first order of business is to determine that we have a quorum, and such has been determined. And so I officially call this meeting to order. We've distributed both by email and written copies are before you. The agenda is before you. We need a motion to act upon that.
Motion to approve.
I second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any need for discussion, additions, or deletions? Being none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, the motion carries. For those who are participating and joining us either by Zoom or officially tonight, you may be viewing by YouTube. We've added that to our distribution list as a means of communicating with the public and keeping our local citizens informed of our actions. And so henceforth going forward, we will be on YouTube Live also. Our first order of business is a public listening and input session is to introduce our second quarter reports. And so can we please have the slides, and we'll summarize where we are at this point. We held our first meeting of the quarter on the 15th of January. We announced our placements for the subcommittees. You will hear more from them later because we're carrying out most of our duties through our subcommittees at this point. And we also laid out roles that we had, 3 key roles that we wanted to have in each of the subcommittees. Dr. Townsell also provided us with a mid-year report, and I think the key issue is in that report that he presented was that all the indicators that the system is using for tracking student wellness and behavior indicate an improvement over this same period last year, with the exception of one, which is vaping. Now, we also have a new area that the system is tracking now, but really there is no baseline data for it, and that is the issue of cell phone use because they are prohibited during certain periods of the day. And so, of course, there are violations there because the student population is becoming adjusted to that. Next slide. In our second meeting, we were pleased to have representatives from the Calvert County Family Network, and we received information on their needs assessment and the other resources available in the county. We also received an additional follow-up from Molly Wanamaker of the Public School Systems Department of Student Services, and she presented us information on the Maryland Consortium, which is an outgrowth of the new funding for the school systems. And she also shared with us basically those nonprofit and other community-based agencies that are a part of that consortium that partner with the school system in offering additional services beyond the school day for the student population. We held the third meeting last month on the 19th, and Cecilia Lewis and Tiffany McFarland of the Public School Systems Department of Student Services presented a great deal of information and also shared with us what's going on with regard to what the resources look at in the department, and also provided us with a student climate survey. And I think you'll hear more about that and some of the findings and some of the data that is being analyzed by our subcommittees. But that sort of wraps up where we are with that part of the overview. And now I welcome our subcommittees to share their work for this quarter.
In the middle, or you want me here?
No,
No, you're good.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kenry Hunt. I'm the Detective Sergeant with the State Police. What we talked about is the discipline of referrals. We knew that there were going to be a little bit of rise with the cell phone use, and because of the school's proactive approach with the vaping, we figured that those would also be on the rise as well. But everything else, there was a significant decrease from last year's numbers and, compared to 2024, 2025 numbers. They also talked about a really good mental health app called Prosper, where there's, it seems to be a pretty good volume of kids using that, but I think that was only geared towards the high school age kids, so we're looking to see getting that into the middle schools and with the faculty as well to make sure that everyone has a very good approach for helping out with mental health. For the current focus, we're obviously focusing on the staff, but also for the students and their well-being and their mental health as well. We saw that there was a shortage in psychologists, psychiatrists within the schools, and we're hoping to try to get some type of support to get that fully staffed and running to really provide a strong backbone for mental health. And we're trying to look at trends. It seems like with the attendance, certain demographics, there was a little bit lower attendance of school, so really trying to get into the weeds to see what we can do and move forward to get everyone, students and staff, to be in a higher attendance at school. And for our areas needing more research, obviously that Prosper app, we all believe was a very good app for mental health, but it's in, again, trying to get that more in the hands of younger users as well, and really promote that. It seems to be very helpful within the schools, and students are using that. So getting that out to people that maybe that don't have cell phones, things of that nature. Looking at different policies and procedures that are need to be improved for school safety for the students and the staff, and what other schools are doing, either within maybe different counties or even within different states that is working for mental health.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Denise Dickerson, and I'm joined on this subcommittee by Deborah Harris. We've been lucky enough, since we're a member short, to have the addition of Jennifer Moreland to assist us. The findings that our subcommittee found fairly relevant to the work that we're doing is, again, referencing the 20% increase in tobacco and vaping incidents. As Pastor Jones mentioned, this is unclear if this is baseline data due to the increased surveillance within the schools, but we feel that it's a wraparound issue that can be addressed by both families, community, and the school system. In addition, the chronic absenteeism trends, specifically highlighting the individuals that are among the economically disadvantaged families. These students seem to have the highest rate of chronic absenteeism, so a lot of our work will be focused on how to get information to the families that need that information, the resources, and ensuring that we can help to improve that. And lastly, the number of students, or percentage of students who responded to the Youth Risk Behavioral Surveillance study who were living with a parent or guardian that had a severe behavioral health issue or were suicidal at some point. This is a key indicator for the ACEs survey. ACEs meaning the
Adverse
thank you. Adverse childhood events. This places students at greater risk for having issues in adulthood for social, emotional, or physical health. Our current focus right now, though, is looking at ensuring that there's a process to implement referrals across all teams in an equitable way. It seems that we have stakeholders that are consistently making referrals to the different resources within the community, but we want to make this a little bit more equitable and include other stakeholders that could be instrumental in getting students and families connected to services. Additionally, we're really interested in determining what the exact role in the best practices for the Family Navigator, which is a new grant-funded role within our community, and how do we utilize this service to the fullest effect. And lastly, how do we ensure that the community resources are accessible to the families that actually need this information? We want to make sure that these are getting to all people that need the information and access to the resources instead of the same audience over and over again. The areas that we plan to look further into is getting additional information with regards to what are the enforcement measures for businesses that sell vape products or tobacco to underage youth. Understanding barriers that families encounter when trying to access resources or participate in school or community-based events. And then also trying to understand the level of parent involvement in the disciplinary process, ensuring that the engagement is relative to the family. It's a disciplinary procedure that works within their family unit, their neighborhood, and their culture, and understanding what the accountability is for each person that's involved in that plan.
Okay, next up is Safe and Supportive Environment Subcommittee. I'm Leslie Irvin, lead on that one. Here are our findings so far. Representatives from the Maryland Consortium and Calvert County Public Schools should meet quarterly, have one access point or hub that should be on the main website, and a presentation for all schools to shared open houses in the fall should be created. This would allow families to have access to the resources that they seem to not really know about quite yet. We're thinking the local care team should be more involved with closing gaps in mental health services for Calvert County Public Schools by connecting with guidance counselors, social workers, and pupil personnel workers of schools that have higher rates of students with academic deficiencies. And then the Maryland Coalition of Families, MCF, should partner with the same guidance counselors, social workers, and pupil personnel workers for schools just like the LCT would partner with, again, to help educate families of the resources that they can offer. So just trying to really get those two groups into schools that maybe have some higher need. Start there and see what happens. Our current focus, you'll see the word educating in front of every single bullet because on our subcommittee we have a very deep belief that that is one of our main purposes for being on this subcommittee. First of all, educating families of the change of Code of Maryland Regulations, or COMAR. These are laws that affect school discipline and how they can partner with schools to positively affect that school climate. Again, educating families of the resources that are available to them to help support mental health challenges, and then educating families about the importance of school attendance and the effects that school climate and culture have on their child's education. Some areas needing some additional research. How can we include students and parents or guardians on the Code of Conduct Review Committee to ensure they understand how it works and why parent support is critical for student safety and well-being? How can we identify student, staff, and community misconceptions of the role that schools play when it comes to student safety and well-being? And then how can we leverage community partnerships to enhance the safety and well-being of our students and families?
Okay, Empowering Positive Student Behavior Subcommittee. We had 4 points. The first one was broadening the focus beyond the disciplinary data. While recent data from our superintendent, Dr. Townsend, showed a decrease in behavioral incidents, with the exception of a 20% rise in vaping, the subcommittees emphasized the need to move beyond the discipline statistics. Our committee believes that there's a strong consensus to focus on holistic student well-being, including their mental health, which has been said over and over, the trauma, family support, and community engagement. Our second point was identifying key testimonies to inform policy and recommendations, which we have seen some of those. The committee gathered presenters and experts that we thought should be helpful to empowering positive student behavior to speak to us in the future. We recommended Calvert County Family Network for Child and Family Services, CCPS CCPS leadership, which we heard before, the Attachment and Trauma Network, Leonard Webb, who's a school-to-prison pipeline person, and the Maryland Coalition of Families, Parents Place of Maryland, and Disability Rights. A third point that our subcommittee felt was important was centering student voice in lived experiences. And the most important is student perspectives, which is what we highlighted, especially in decision-making related to their safety and their rights. Intentional inclusion of student testimony, including from the student members of the board, which is the SMOB. Grace Minikowski, please forgive me if I pronounced her name wrong, was recommended to better understand students' lived experience and advocate effectively for their needs. And then our fourth point was reviewing and adopting best 5-star practices. Members recommended a dedicated effort to review nationally recognized best practices and programs. We also suggested a model that included something like the Family Network, which is something that one of our subcommittees has had experience in working over in the previous years. Rachel's Challenge, which is anti-bullying and kindness campaign, and the campaign of community care, which is a wraparound mental health and wellness support.
All right, the next subcommittee, Modern Facilities and Resources. I'm Sergeant Woodford. Just going to briefly go over some of the stuff that we felt was important to us. Some of the findings from the second quarter. I think the most that we took from with Ms. Cecilia Lewis's presentation, and it just hit home with us because we deal with a lot of the vaping here and all the statistics. That's just saying that's such a big problem still in the schools, and probably the problem that, besides the cell phones, that is most problematic throughout the school day. Another point, just from their surveys that they did, just the statistics of who's more likely to vape and who's vaping more, just breakdown of the demographics and stuff like that. Our current focus is ways to combat that vaping epidemic. Currently looking into the ways that the schools are attempting to deter the vaping use, how they're catching the students, how they're actually catching the students, and what happens to them. Are they getting mandatory, health, having to go to the health department? Or are they just getting disciplined through the school? What all that looks like. And then other resources outside in the community that they could also use to help with this. Just last week on April 3rd, I was able to go to Pathways Adolescents Clubhouse, which is opening I went to their open house. They're just opening in Lusby. And they're going to be servicing kids that go to Patuxent High School, Mill Creek Middle, and Southern Middle School. And it's a very energetic, youth-oriented, education-based group. I spoke with them for about an hour down there. It seems like they're very, they definitely get involved and get some, the schools to send the kids there. It's more voluntary, but they're hoping if the kids could maybe take one class, they might, want to do a second class or something like that. They're very educationally based of what all this vaping and marijuana does to the system and stuff like that. Areas that we need additional research. Again, I want to speak to student services, Cecilia Lewis and Larry Titus, to see, I know some of the schools have vape detectors, and see how those are working and what the school response is when those go off, and how often they're actually catching someone, or how effective these vape detectors are, and if it's something that we need to implement in all schools if we don't have them. I don't know which high schools have them, which middle schools have them. See how they're working. Let's see, what else? Also want to reach out to Buildings and Grounds. I don't know what exactly they call that at the Board of Ed, but just see what issues they're having with some of their buildings. I know some of the buildings are getting aged, so if there's any mold, bugs, mice, anything like that going on, and how they're addressing those issues. And then also maybe look into new constructions of what schools are next on the list for construction to be replaced or revamped and stuff like that. So that's some of the stuff that we're looking into.
There was at one point a rating system for schools that was conducted annually by the state. It would be interesting to also add that to your list if you could, to see if in fact, how our schools are faring this day based upon the state criteria. We do know we have several schools that have aged out. And so, not everyone has a beautiful school like Beach Elementary.
I know.
So we're hoping that we see similar things replicated in other areas. Let me just share for public information where we see ourselves going in the next quarter. We have, we've heard from the school system, and we now want to hear from our public health agencies. We want to hear from public safety, the courts and juvenile services. You heard one of our subcommittees just reporting similarly. We're looking for some preliminary findings, hopefully, from our subcommittees in June. And we have, I would say we're probably 75% there with regard to the preparation of a community survey for community input. We have identified mechanisms that we will use to distribute that survey to have a far-reaching impact in the public, while we'll make it available to any and all. We have identified approximately 20% of the county's population that we have means by which we can reach out to electronically. So we're going to have a pretty broad distribution of that community survey. It's our intent to continue to move forward with the processes that we have and to allow our subcommittees to basically be engaged at a level that allows them to look at recommendations that as a group we can agree upon to move forward. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add? Any subcommittee miss any point that we may want to make sure that we share with the public this evening? Okay. All right, then. We have reached the point then that we're ready to receive public input. And so, Emily, do you have something you'd like to share? Or do we have someone who would like to share with us?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, there is no speakers online ready to lead public comment.
Okay. Is there anyone present who would like to make a public comment? Okay. Going once, going twice? Okay. Well, we'd like to thank the members of the public for tuning in. We will continue our process of seeking public input. I would urge you to please be on the lookout for the community survey. It's vital that we hear from you. We are often given hotspot issues when something appears in a newspaper or some other means of what's happening on Facebook. But the reality is that we need to hear from you directly, and we would greatly appreciate increased public input into this process. This is a critical issue for multiple reasons. We've seen in major media recently, as recent as yesterday, in the Post, an article on student wellness and the impact of the negative impact of bullying on a 10-year-old's life. Today's New York Times carried an interesting article on the population that we're going to have to zero in on, as one of the subcommittees was referring to. It seems that the whole movement towards leaving no child behind has wavered itself out from the state's perspective. And now, since 2013, the states are reporting that the lowest gains in the last 30 years in student achievement for children who are economically disadvantaged. And we see that population here has an attendance issue. And so as we look at how the school environment is playing out, and as we look at the wellness, we can't forget what the general purpose is of the public school system. And that is to educate students. And if we have students who aren't there, that's not being, that's not taking place. And so, we'll continue to look at a myriad of issues and continue to have our ears open and our hearts open to receive your input. Anything else for the good of the order? If not, I will share with you that our next public meeting is April 16th. And at this time, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
I second.
Properly moved and second. Any need for discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The motion carries. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.